This is my favorite part. Exciting!
In my time covering Titanfall 2, I made over 150 videos. The vast majority of those videos focused on the new player experience. And it wasn't always just necessarily about the new to Titanfall 2 player experience. It was about the, hey, this might be your very first player versus player competitive first-person shooter experience. How can I help you make that experience more enjoyable, more learnable, and just in general, a hell of a lot less frustrating? That was always my focus with Titanfall 2, and at the end of the day, I surprisingly and unknowingly, and in some cases knowingly, helped a lot of people make their way into Titanfall 2 as not just their first Titanfall experience, but one of their first player versus player driven first-person shooter experiences. I'd like to do the same thing with Apex Legends. So today marks the beginning of what will be many beginner's guides aimed at actual beginners. And if you're a long-time player who's a seasoned veteran or who maybe just started playing and has put a lot of time in over the past month or maybe even more than that with other first-person shooters and other battle royales, you might just get something out of this series as well. But again, this is going to be aimed at the true beginner. Person who is looking to enjoy their very first battle royale or perhaps their very first first-person shooter. Before we get into any specific guides where we might talk about things like strafing, inventory management, movement, and individual weapons, I think it's important that we talk about the mindset and lay out some structure, some groundwork if you will, to help you make your way into Apex Legends and to actually start learning from your own mistakes, to have an experience that's as frustration-free as possible, while also allowing you to constantly look inward on your own personal experiences and failures so you can learn and get better at the game more quickly than you otherwise might. So let's start at the very beginning, which requires us to talk about how you might play Apex Legends. This is a 3-player, squad-driven battle royale. Now you could play with a group of friends, and that's honestly the way I recommend you play any team-based game, but I would strongly recommend you ensure that those friends are willing to give you an enjoyable experience, especially if they're more seasoned than you are, and they may or may not have a tendency to get kind of toxic or frustrated or irritated with you due to your lack of skill. That's not really the way you want to experience a game like this. At the end of the day, your main goal is to play Apex Legends with as little concern as possible for the other members on your team and how they're going to look at you from your own personal skill perspective. So yes, you want to work with your team. You want to move with them when possible, whether you're playing with friends or playing with randoms. You want to make use of the smart comm system. You want to do your best to be a good teammate, but you don't want to put yourself in a position where 90% of your focus is on, oh, am I letting my team down? I hope I'm not letting my team down. Oh, I totally let my team down. That was my fault. They died. Listen, the best of players let their teammates die. The best of players let themselves and their teammates down. Your big concern as a new player in a game like Apex Legends needs to be putting your own personal improvement above everything else. Again, teamwork's still important, but you can focus on being a decent teammate while focusing on your own personal improvement. It's once you sink yourself into that mindset of, I'm just going to keep on bringing them down, they're losing because of me, that you're definitely not going to be able to get better or comfortable, or have any fun along the way. So throw that thought process out of the window. I can't tell you the number of times I've had people come to me during live streams for Titanfall 2 and say they didn't want to join us for network play days because they didn't want to bring everybody else down. Get that nonsense out of here. We're all trying to have a good time, and if anybody ever tries to give you crap for otherwise, you can answer them politely one time and simply say, dude, I'm new to the game, I'm trying to learn. And if they still want to give you crap after that, well, just mute them because they're not worth your time. Now, once you get beyond that initial step and actually start playing Apex Legends, this is going to sound really obvious, but the best thing you can do is to actually just play the game. Practice does make at least somewhat perfect. You're never going to be perfect, but it starts to push to a point where you can feel perfect and then get frustrated at yourself for the errors that you're making that you really just don't make that much anymore. You just need to spend a lot of time playing the game, like a lot. And again, don't really worry about anything other than your own personal improvement, which at this point needs to start with becoming comfortable with the game. Like if you go into a gunfight or if you drop out of the dropship and you're already forgetting about which buttons you need to be pressing in order to do what, yeah, that's the sort of thing you want to get over. You want to develop that sense of, this is a place I've been before. I understand how this works. That whole idea of you never forget how to ride a bicycle, you never want to forget how to ride the bicycle that is Apex Legends. Once you can reach that point, you're going to be able to move on to a whole nother layer of learning. So get comfortable with the control scheme. Change your control scheme up if things don't feel comfortable to you. If you're constantly meleeing on accident, look at the optional controls available to you. Take your melee off your right stick, put it on your B button, and put your crouch on your right stick. In fact, that's a really good beginner's tip for just about anybody. I guess we'll throw it into this video anyway. Beyond that, you want to get comfortable with looting. You want to develop an understanding for the different weapon types, the ammo that they use, the different shields, whether it's a shield cell or a shield battery, syringes, med kits, the different armors, all of the basic systems that make up the Apex Legends experience. You can develop an understanding for all of these things, number one, by playing the game's tutorial, which I'm pretty sure it's required, and then spending more time in the tutorial area. Pick up weapons, get comfortable with the different ammunition types, looting them, swapping things in and out of your inventory. You can actually do all of that in the training area. It's a good place to start. It's a good place to practice shooting, but I really do recommend you spend a lot of time doing that in-game, because when the timer's on your butt and there's a lot of other players that might be trying to shoot at you and you're trying to focus with moving with your team and the circle and all this other crazy stuff, it makes it a little bit more chaotic. So doing it out in the wild is going to make it feel even more comfortable than it otherwise would if you just learned it all through the training area. Don't forget about your HUD and the mini-map, the map system, again, the smart ping system. Learn about the circle. Again, just develop a very basic understanding for everything Apex Legends has to offer. You don't have to master it just yet, but you want to be comfortable with it. And don't get too caught up in your aim just yet. I know a bunch of people are already playing this game and they're just like, I can't hit anything. You can worry about aim once everything else is comfortable. Let's stress that point. Be comfortable with those basic elements before you worry about anything else. Now, once you are comfortable, it's time to talk about combat. Again, you can spend a lot of time practicing shooting inside of the training area, and I really do recommend you do that. Spend time shooting the different guns, get a feeling for the recoil pattern. If you want to go even further than that, you can look up charts on how the recoil works for the different weapons, the damage of them, but I recommend you keep it basic, pick up some weapons in the training area, shoot the targets with them, and get comfortable with them. Now, it's important that you spend a lot of time getting in gunfights out in the actual game. This is why I really want to stress the importance of playing somewhat aggressive in a battle royale, especially as a new player. You can play passive initially, especially as you're getting comfortable with the controls. It's okay to do a bunch of really calm drops and get comfortable with the looting system. You know, get to a point, again, where you're comfortable with those things. I'm going to use that word way too much in this. And then start pushing into gunfights. Passive play will only get you so far in a battle royale. You might be able to get your first or second victory, and it might be a little boost of confidence or adrenaline, but if that victory took place after you waited out the entire game and just happened to kill one last guy while the rest of his team was dead, that's not necessarily the level of confidence you want to be working towards when it comes to actually getting in gunfights. So go find people who are shooting other people, and then shoot at them, and then die, and then rinse and repeat. The big thing for a lot of people here is going to be shaking those nerves. Battle royales are intense, and even if you play a lot of other first-person shooters, there's a certain adrenaline factor that comes with a battle royale that just doesn't really come with other games. The first time I played PUBG, it was ridiculous, and I've been playing shooters like since the days of Counter-Strike 1.6 and Quake and, you know, all the way through Halo and Gears of War and all the other games that I've played over the last 20-plus years now, and I still was shaking. My nerves still got going. So you're going to have to overcome that. The more comfortable you can become with those gunfights, and the more you can develop a mindset where it's like, it's just another engagement. It's just another engagement. The less you'll have to worry about those shakes and those nerves, and the more time you can spend focusing on actually landing your shots, managing your inventory, managing your weapons, and eventually winning those gunfights. This is also a great opportunity to experiment with the different legends, the different weapons, and start developing your own personal play style. A lot of people who are new to battle royales and who are new to first-person shooters are kind of a blank slate. You really don't know where your strengths and weaknesses are yet. You don't know if you're good at aiming. Some people, it just comes to them naturally. They can pick up aim tracking with a mouse and keyboard or with a controller like they've been doing it their whole lives. There are people out there like that. You might be one of them. And if so, great. But if not, that's okay too, because no one's perfect right from the get-go, and you're going to have to learn. But it's important at this point in time for you that you do actually start to realize where you suck and where you don't suck. You don't have to immediately go out and start improving in those areas where you're not that great, but it's good to at least acknowledge them so you can build a playstyle around your strengths and around your weaknesses. And in general, that's going to help you start to become a better player overall. You can focus later on improving your aim or improving your positioning, working on, micro things like strafing and gunfights. Again, just look for the basics here and start to mold yourself into an Apex Legends, into a first-person shooter, into a Battle Royale player. Let me once again stress that idea of passive play. Passive play only gets you so far. Don't be afraid to be a little aggressive, at least a little bit of the time. And when you do finally pull the trigger on a group of people who might be shooting at other people, expect the worst. That is the rule of Battle Royale, and that brings us to our next step in the new player's mindset, the reality of the Battle Royale. Expect the worst, because you will die, you will be outplayed, you will be outflanked, you will be outgunned. The best thing you can do is turn each and every one of those failures, each and every one of those experiences, no matter how successful or no matter how not successful, into knowledge. That knowledge will then help you become a better player. It will help you develop your own personal skill set. It will help you become more skilled, essentially. It's the path to getting good, as many people will say. You have to acknowledge those shortcomings. You have to acknowledge those failures. And you have to do this one key thing. You have to make sure that you spend as little time as possible blaming the game. Blaming everything but yourself. There's a time and place to communicate with your team and say, oh, we should have all done that better. Or, oh, it's too bad that, you weren't able to get to me quicker. But honestly, those discussions carry little value in a game like Apex Legends. This isn't high-level competitive tournament play where you've got a coach who's like, listen, you're supposed to be our Slayer, Dave, and you really let the team down, man. You picked up the sword, you didn't get one kill with it, you died, the team got the sword, they wiped our team out, we lost the flag cap. Like, this isn't that. You're playing with randoms, you're playing with a group of friends. The more time you spend blaming everyone else or everything else, the less time you're going to spend actually learning from your own mistakes. And I can assure you that like 99% of us out there, we're not good enough to be worrying about blaming anyone else or anything else. We need to be focusing on ourselves. We need to be asking ourselves what we could have done better, what we should have done better, where we failed, and how we can make sure that that failure happens a little bit less each and every time it happens. It's not going to be as simple as, oh, I shouldn't have done that, and then you're just never going to do that again. It's just human nature, especially when the shit starts to hit the fan, that certain things just happen. You have certain tendencies, you have certain bad habits that are baked in to your playstyle and that will become baked in your playstyle over time. You have to consciously break them down and remove them over what is usually a long period of time. All of that time you spend in firefights where you don't strafe, you're not just going to one day be like, I'm going to strafe, and then strafe the whole day. You're going to have to constantly remind yourself, strafe, strafe, strafe. And eventually, you'll actually do it all the time. Eventually, it will become muscle memory. Eventually, it will become natural. But again, you can't do any of that if you're not willing to accept the failures as your own before everything else. Always ask yourself the question, what could I have done better? Accept the failure, turn it into knowledge, turn it into skill. And that is going to do it for today's lesson, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any big questions as a new player, any things you would like to see me cover in an upcoming guide for the series, this is a great opportunity for you to make those suggestions down in the comment section below. I'm going to do my best throughout this entire series to cover both the console side of things as well as the PC side of things. So if we ever discuss a mechanic like strafing that I feel is substantially different when you move from mouse and keyboard to controller, we will be sure to note that in the video. So this should be a guide series that works for you whether you play on console or PC, and I will try and keep it that way for as long as I possibly can. That's going to do it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.